Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Hey. Again, we're ghost hunters. We're a little bit different than most of the ghost hunters that you'll run into. Most of the ghost hunters like to go hang around graveyards or some dark building where people were murdered or something to that effect. You don't have to have all that stuff to have a ghost. As a matter of fact, what we find is that most of the spirits we encounter are there because they loved something, a person, place, or thing. And what I'm going to do today, how many of you guys when you were younger, we got a little older crowd here, played Clue when you were young? Okay. That's what we do. We go out, I bring this group out, and Al goes, Tim does all the heavy lifting. That is not true. Tim's a delegator. I have some very talented friends, and I want all you guys to stand up real quick, if you would. All you guys stand up real quick. Those of you sitting on the ground, stand up. Yeah. Give these guys a hand because they really did all the work for this. We are Spirit Paranormal. We do all kinds of different things. We clear houses. We go places where people are having problems with spirits. But we do a lot of historical hauntings, which is really great because we can take a spirit and tie them to the true history. And what we're going to do is we're going to go headlong into this and not back into it like a lot of people are. Again, this is the search for the spirits of the State Library. Who are we? I'm going to read this. I promise I'm not going to stand up here and read to you all night. What are you saying? I don't read very well is what I'm saying. Spirit is an acronym for Spirit Paranormal Investigation, Research, and Intervention Team. We are a small but highly qualified group of individuals that investigate the paranormal. We came together with two things in common. We all have an overwhelming curiosity for the paranormal and a desire to help others deal with the problems caused by a haunting. Spirit takes a multifaceted approach to investigating a reported haunting. We will do this by using scientific methods and equipment to record activity. We also use intuitives and mediums to receive impressions to better understand the cause of the haunting. This way we can solve the case of the cause of the haunting and help the spirits or energies move on. Our mission, most spirits are not evil, they're not dark, they're just spirits. We all have spirits around us all the time. The room's full of spirits. This is what we do on an everyday. A lot of people are afraid of ghosts. We prefer to call them spirits, but we think it's just a normal part of life. Okay. Now here's some excerpts from the employee interviews from Bob White. Is Bob in here? He did it. Stand up, Bob. He did a wonderful job of doing the interviews. I think you ought to put that out on CD. We thank the people that did the interviews and stuff. They did a great job. A lot of people are afraid to talk about their encounters with spirits and stuff, and Bob did a great job of making them feel at home and relaxed, and came up with some really, really great stuff. You should have some.
We always keep it locked or latched. And just as I reached for it, the door swung open into my hand, and I was still 6 to 8 inches away from it.
Are you serious?
I'm serious, and I had two witnesses to it.
So it happened to you then?
It happened to me, so
Okay.
I guess I have to change the story now.
Okay, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of that. What had happened was that they'd had this case that's airtight. It's set up so that the wind doesn't blow into it and things like that. And they'd had, after we had done our investigation, all of a sudden these two illustrations seemed to have gotten blown over, which in itself is just kind of a okay. And then Steve's, like he said, was in a room, and the door opened for him into his hand. So this is what we're hearing from the people here at the library. Let me turn it way up here.
World. We normally call these energies elementals. They are often referred to by public names such as fright, fairies, gremlins, and even leprechauns. Some are described as childlike and mischievous and loving, while others can be very cruel. Reports of these little people go back hundreds and even thousands of years. It's now generally accepted that the one possibility is they exist in an alternate parallel reality. Like spirits, there has never been any solid evidence of their existence, but yet people continue to report that they've witnessed them.
And you guys thought you were coming here to hear about ghosts. These are what we call elementals. These are a couple of pictures that I have around. If you notice on this lady's shoulder, there seems to be some kind of little creature. These creatures live just outside our field of vision, usually in the infrared spectrum. If you look on the one on the right, you can see it from the front. If you look at the one on the left, it looks like there's a little tail hanging down off of her shoulder. Here's another kind of a stock photo that I brought in. Doesn't that look very much like a traditional ghost? A lot of people talk about a ghost flying across the room. So these are what we would call elementals.
And there was one night, this is kind of freaky too. This here brings hairs up on my arm. My mother used to work here. Back then, at that time, when she worked here.
Family members?
Yeah. There was a lot of us here at one time that was related. Most of us that was here was related to maybe through a different set of relations or something. But she was working here at the time. I was a boss then, and I was about my area, and she was in the middle part. So she had her boss, I think, was Addie at the time. Yeah, her work leader. And I had locked all my stuff up, come through there, and my mother proceeded to tell me one night, I've got little people running all over my floor. So I'm like, what are you talking about? I kind of felt like I didn't believe her. I know when you went in that area, you could feel kind of funny. And she said, yeah. She said, I'll be sweeping and they'll just run out past me. And I'm looking, and she said, she said, don't bother me. She said, I'll just tell them, hey, get out of my way, or I'll sweep you up in the sweeper and stuff. Until one night she was there and the lights went out. And she said, I got the feeling that these little people that I'm aggravating is going to attack me in here. And there was one of our friends, Miss Rose, she worked here too.
Where does it say?
It's up on 3 Middle West. Yeah. I believe it's the corrections department.
Oh, yeah.
And
They gave me those too.
yeah. But this is a place where they actually, the corrections people, they've actually took weapons away from prisoners and stuff in there, and they're bringing them in and putting them in display to show people different weapons that they make. And well, there was another woman that worked here at the time. My mother was cleaning in there one night. She told them, she said, get out of here. She said, the little people, she seen them running. She told them, get out of here and go bother Miss Rose over there or something. Get out of my area. And she said she didn't think no more about it. Well, Miss Rose come into her area that night. It was about close to time for her to go down and clock out. They'd put everything up, and they'd sit there and wait till time to go down to clock out. And she's sitting there, and Miss Rose comes in the room where my mother's at, and she's sitting there. And Mom said she could tell that she was kind of weird acting that night. She said, what's going on, Miss Rose? She said, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Mom said, tell me. She said, no, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Mom said, little people? She said, exactly. She said, they're running all over my floor. My mom said, I'm sorry. I said, I told them to go bother you, but I didn't really, But,
So these would be people she'd see, not just a...
yeah, she said they were real little people, just little people, and they were dressed in real old-time clothes. You know how back then they had the old dresses that was real and flowed to the ground? She said they were just like little dolls, like little bitty people. And they were dressed up in these clothes, and they would run. So they'd run all over her floors.
No, you wouldn't believe me if I told you.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that you saw a specter. Okay, would you prefer specter or ghost?
I usually just say the ghost.
Okay. What did you see?
Well, it was a very short glimpse of someone passing ahead of me in the aisle and going round a corner and into another aisle, and as if someone were walking swiftly. I saw what appeared to be a middle-sized man wearing a black coat to reach just below his knees, like sort of an overcoat, and it was a black hat with the brim that sort of turned downwards. It had just a roundish hat that had like a dent in the middle sort of thing, and then the brim that angled downwards. And I thought that he looked older and had gray to white hair. And that was as much as I saw when I went down to that aisle and looked around the corner to see who was there. There wasn't anybody.
That's very detailed.
Yeah, well, I learned from my career in the military, when we were out scouting for bombs, you take in a lot of detail in a short amount of time, you know, because it's like life or death that way. So yeah.
How long were you in the military?
I'm still in. I've been in for the last 22 years.
Okay. Was this a white person or African American or?
As far as I could tell, it was a white person.
Okay. And you said middle size. What do you mean by middle size?
Well, I would say someone who was maybe between 5'5" to 5'8". I couldn't really tell that part.
How far ahead of you was he?
I was standing at the stairwell door, close by there. I had just turned on the light to get something, and he was about, I would say, it's like maybe 30 feet or so down to the end of that aisle where he turned in, because he turned in at the second to last aisle of the stacks.
So the light was on when you saw this?
Yeah, the light was on.
Do you think you scared him? Surprised him?
I don't think so, because there was no kind of eye contact or head turning.
Because this was such a unique opportunity for us, having so many teams and mediums working together, we decided the best way to get the best information was to break all the teams up into small groups and let them go through individually. The only people who were privy to all the information was Tim Poynter and the photographer and videographers who helped him during this research.
Every one of our team members are seasoned paranormal investigators. Most are not only investigators, but outstanding mediums, psychics, intuitives, and healers. They can not only connect with the spirits, but can read the energy of location, much like others read a book. We offer you a small glimpse into a very different side of paranormal investigation.
I'm Reverend Bonnie Darby from the Spiritualist Church of Indianapolis, and I participated in the investigation of the Indiana State Library. As a medium or intuitive, whichever word you choose to use, the things that I saw there, about my mediumship, when I say saw, it's more of an impression. I'm more of a clairsentient and a clairvoyant, which means I feel things and the image comes into my mind. But there was a lady there that moved around in the basement of the library, and she wore a long dress. To me, the dress appeared dark, and it appeared to have some kind of lace or underskirt underneath that peeked out under the edge. It sort of reminded me of a maid's dress, but I actually have no way of knowing that. That's just a description of the dress itself. She seemed more comfortable with us being in the archive. She just did what she did and kind of worked around us. There was a gentleman down there, and he had a lot of nervous energy, and he was very busy, and he was not, his energy is comfortable with us being there, but he was very curious about us being there because he was always around. He would come and he would look, and he would be around, especially when we would stop and sit. But what he did the most was work. It's what he did. He just worked. We found pictures that resembled this gentleman up in the archives upstairs that we all saw, that I saw. There was another male entity down there, and his energy was totally different from the man that seemed so busy. He was more studious and more quiet and more concerned. He had a more solid build to him. The man high energy felt taller and thinner, but this man felt more solid as he was moving around. And I think both gentlemen had something to do with the library. They worked there, they did things in it. It was their passion and it was their love. It was very important to them. I went upstairs and sat upstairs for a while, and I questioned the room I was in. I don't even remember what room I was in, but in that room, it didn't feel like a library when I sat down. I felt like I was in some kind of lounge or someplace that had meetings, and there were people around with food, and there was just a lot of different people wheeling around. That's pretty much what I saw, I believe.
And what was the name of the church that you were associated with?
The Spiritualist Church of Indianapolis.
And not only Al can throw in a blatant ad there. If you guys get a chance, stop by and see these people. Some of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my entire life. We're going to go play Clue now. Number one, we got a man who's very studious, nervous, and very busy. The second man, darker, standoffish, and curious. A woman, worker type, long dress, and very busy. Bonnie also described what appeared to be a business that served food, had meetings. She had no idea that before the Indiana State Library stood here, a Hotel LaSalle occupied this location. It was a common resting place for those visiting the capital city.
My name is Cindy Atkins. I'm a medium. I have a store here in Shovel, Indiana called Spiritual Journey. We also have a paranormal team called Paranormal Pack. The store here, what we have to offer, we do house cleansings, house blessings, we do readings, we do paranormal investigations, a little bit of everything here and there. You can find us on Facebook, and it tells you a little bit more about our store and what we have to offer. But the reason for the video is we did an event with Spirit Paranormal at the Indiana State Library, just kind of telling you what we found, what I sensed, what I got. When we went down into the stacks in the basement, the first person I encountered was a 20-year-old female prostitute. She let me know that she was beaten and murdered. She's been there for some time. She's not with the library. I think she was there from before. Very sweet lady, and she's just kind of wanting to get her story out and let everybody know what happened to her. Then while we were down in the stacks, I encountered a dark shadow man. He's not bad, he's not negative, he's a good man. I would say he's got some kind of uniform on. I can't say really cop or security guard, but it's a form of a uniform. Also, while we was down there, there's a second level, a concrete walkway. And down on the walkway, there was a lot of sexual intercourse going on down there. And I think it's more to do with the prostitution that happened there. Not so much of what's going on now, but there shows that there was a lot of that going on. Then as we come up to the second level of the library, encountered a man that is in a white doctor's coat, lab coat, whatever, and he roams the whole library, especially up on the top floors. That's basically about all that I have encountered, but there's a lot of activity and a lot of good energy and lots of nice people there.
I want you to take me down and show me where that spot was. All right, we're going back to playing Clue again. I got a woman, a 20-year-old prostitute that said she had been murdered. A man, a dark shadow in a uniform and very protective. A man in a white doctor's coat, very nervous. Lots of hanky-panky. I watered that down a little bit. This would have been a location for on the property back in the early 1900s, a perfect location for dignitaries to the capital to seek companionship. Now, I'm not saying that they did, but we'll just go with the record. Next two are Barbara Gentry and Melody Dunn.
I'm Barbara Gentry. I'm a medium. I attend the Spiritualist Church of Indianapolis.
Hi, I'm Melody Dunn. I am a medium. I attend the the Spiritualist Church of Indianapolis, and I'm a partner and producer of Mermaid Moon Productions.
We're here to share our experiences that we had on the investigation of the Indiana State Library, the Genealogy Library.
When we first walked in, we were overtaken by the beauty of the stained glass windows. And as we were walking and talking, I immediately noticed a small statured man who was following Barb.
This is a spirit.
Yes, it's a spirit. And I watched him at first, and he didn't disappear. Is that everywhere we went, he was behind Barb, but he was in the background. He stayed 10, 15 feet away. He didn't want to engage us, nor did he want us to engage him. But he was very fixated on following Barb all through the foyer and where the windows were. He was small, slender, he had glasses and thinning dark hair. And afterwards, Alan had me pick him out of a group of photographs as the man who was following Barb. And while he was following Barb was noticing the librarian.
And the librarian seemed to be very busy. And again, this was a spirit. She was going about her business. She had on a long dress, very Victorian in style. And she was just busy arranging books and checking things out and making sure everything was straightened up and in order.
After we had been upstairs in that particular room, we went downstairs into the stacks. And the stacks the lights were off, so we were going by our camera lights and flashlights. And Barb and I were led to several different areas, but the one that was most overwhelming to me, and I think both of us, was an area that had an elevator that was no longer, or didn't feel like it was in use. And the area was blacker than it really looked. And I felt fear, not for myself, but the energy felt this fear that someone had been injured. I felt a woman's fear, as though there had been a rape. And as we were discussing this amongst ourselves, we decided to go down the hallway or alleyway of books.
I'm going to interrupt you just a second, because around that energy where we felt like there had been a rape, I also felt that there had actually been a murder, or at least a severe energy around the area. And don't know if this really burned
nice energy. So we were beating a retreat basically down the stacks. And remember I said, all the lights are off, and Barb and I both stopped. And we turned and we looked, and right in front of us was this bright green book. And I want to say the call numbers were 791 or somewhere in there. It was a book on the afterlife.
Which we thought was really interesting. Of all the thousands and thousands of books in this area, that we stopped and were led to this one book sitting right there on the shelf.
And then we had Monk come over with a large flashlight so that he could shine light. It turned out that we were in the spiritual studies department. And we both started laughing because we're both ministers with the church.
One of the other things that, did you have anything else on that? One of the other things we felt like is after we left the stacks, we went back upstairs to an area that has nice little tables around it and it kind of overlooked the canal. And I'm starting to walk back toward the corner and I started laughing because it went hanky-panky occurred back here. And it's kind of like it wasn't all past hanky-panky, it felt like it's still going on. Whatever. So anyway, but we felt that was interesting.
Oh, yes.
You felt that too.
It was almost as though it had been goosed. Somebody come behind me and just gave me a little poke. I actually looked around.
I felt like there was people making out back there.
And then I stopped and looked because, like Barb said, we were amused. And it didn't feel like prostitutes or anything like that. It just felt like people making out in the stacks, and it was a very nice vista to look out on the canal. And I think that just must be the area where fun stuff happens.
Well, and then afterwards, one of the guards was there, and she started laughing when we were talking about this. Because she said, yeah, we've heard about that too.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to recall.
All right, Denise, put your hand up. Denise is a guard back there. She knows who it is that's doing the hanky-panky. I want to know where that spot is too. I'm not getting near enough action, I can tell you. All right, back to Clue. We got a woman that was beaten and murdered. This is the second time I heard this. As a matter of fact, I heard it several times from several of the mediums. I don't have near enough time to put all the video on here that we got, but we had that again. A man in a white doctor's coat, glasses, and dark thinning hair. Lots of hanky-panky and present, and on the second level, southeast. This would have been the location of the boarding houses located on the property back in the 1900s, and apparently still a good place to go.
Hi, I'm Jill. I'm an intuitive paranormal investigator with Spirit Paranormal. During our investigation at the library, I ran into a couple of unique entities. The first was a tall, slender man. His hair was graying on the side and parted, and he wore a collar that was tall and stiff, a tie, and a brown suit. I also ran into what would be more lower entity. This was more of a shadow spirit. This is what made other people very uncomfortable in the library. This one seemed to follow you around and lurk in darkness. And this is what people saw and felt the most uncomfortable with in the library. We ran into a woman while wandering around the library. This woman had very much period clothes on, a long sleeve with a little puff to it, a short, almost tea-length dress. I believe that she was a previous employee at the library and she was there just to work and keep things in order. One of the things I was very drawn to in the library was the pictures. There's two halls in the upper area. In one, there's a Native American picture, and then in the other, there seems to be a picture of farmers. And it felt as if something was out of balance or something wasn't right. Maybe a partial part of the picture was missing. Maybe there was meant to be a third one, but there seemed to need to be some balance with the pictures that was not captured, and I was very much drawn to that.
Okay, back to playing Clue again. Man with a stiff collar and a tie around his neck and a suit. A watcher, again, he was very curious. The woman in period dress, she's a worker type. And notice that Jill got the impression that the murals weren't quite finished, or maybe that they were out of balance. So that struck me as being a very good clue as to who I'm looking for. The people behind the camera, we always get the intuitives and stuff. They all get a chance to be seen. Well, I wanted to make sure all our people that do pictures and the tech people get here. Well, myself and Cheryl, Mike Albury, Steve Hunt, Joe Wright, Monk Collins. And then the guys that took the pictures, what we do is we take them and we review them, and then we develop a presentation like this. If you looked at the yellow outlined area, and then the picture on the left is the same picture without the outline. A lot of times spirits show up to us much like a piece of saran wrap or something like that. They have shape, they have the features, but they're almost clear. And again, this photo was by Cheryl. This guy looks an awful lot like the guy that Steve took a picture of. And there they are side by side, Steve's guy, and these were taken months apart. I'm not sure, when did you get there, Steve?
Like about a year ago.
About a year ago, so nearly a year apart. This picture was taken by Steve Hunt, and I apologize, it looks a little fuzzy because I had to zoom in quite a bit. On the left, and it really doesn't show up very well here, on the left you notice what looks like, kind of like a guy in a white coat, and then right next to him is a dark shadow looking guy. What I did is I inverted the picture. I took the dark out and put the light in, and it makes it a little easier. The guy that's dark now is actually the guy in the coat. If you look down near the bottom, you can even see where his legs come out, and then they just disappear. The guy on the other side would be the dark shadow guy. That's what most people are, when they go down into stacks, that's the guy that's kind of hanging around. We had a couple orbs. There's a lot of discussion on that. Down on the ground, we had some elementals, the little small creature types, and I won't go into that too deeply, but we're talking more about the spirits. Here's another picture. This one's by Jill Werner. She's one of our intuitives. If you look on this side, the shadow guy's getting ready to step around the corner. That's when he's mostly seen, just stepping around the corner or moving away. Is Joan Gray here?
Not today.
Not today. Joan, you tell Joan she's the best interview I've ever had. I want to put her on the team. She did a great job. She's got several. I could have done 45 minutes on her. So here's a picture I took of Joe shooting some video down in there. You'll notice there's a couple of circles in the next frame here. Again, on the right, you can see a man's face that's framed out, and then in the picture, it's a little harder to see. But again, these pictures or these spirits appear most of the time almost transparent. We can walk right up to them, and they exist in a infrared field of vision, slightly out askew of our vision. This is probably the most impressive picture that we come up with. Joe, hold your hand up. Joe shot this, great picture of Cindy. So Cindy's here somewhere too. Cindy's standing in the stack and she's talking to this 20-year-old girl that was beaten and murdered. I don't care that she was a prostitute. She was a girl. She was beaten and murdered. And she looked back at Joe, and Joe snapped this picture. This is a forward-looking infrared. We call it a FLIR. If you go out and watch the police videos and they're chasing somebody on the street, and they're running up and down the street, and they can pick them out in the dark, that's the type of equipment it is. You'll notice that Cindy is yellow-green, and her hair is blue where it cools off. You notice that the lady standing across from her is all blue and black. If you were blue and black, you would be dead. And our definition of dead, well, she is kind of, she is a spirit. Wonderful picture by Joe. Tell you how good these guys here at the library are. I called or sent Steve a text or a message. I said, hey, how hard would it be to get some information on somebody that lived there? And he goes, well, what are you looking for? I'm saying, well, I'm looking for a 20-year-old woman who was killed. And he goes, well, can you give me a little more information? I'm like, well, what do you want? I said, let's shoot for the 1900s. So they pulled out a 1900 census. What we found was a girl named Minnie Smith, and when we originally got it, we thought it was Minnie, Minnie, you're close. She was a boarder at one of the buildings that was right around the corner here. And it tells her birthday. She was from Canada. Her father was unknown. And her mother was from Canada, and it lists her profession as prostitute. So we got the same information from a census written in the 1900s as what Cindy got from the Spirit. And you don't get that kind of connection very often. This is Cindy on.
My name is Cindy Atkins. I'm a medium with Spiritual Journey. We also have a paranormal team called Paranormal Pack Investigators. We host an event with Spirit Paranormal at the Indiana State Library. And during that event, when I went into the stacks, as soon as I entered into the stacks to the left, I encountered a 20-year-old female. She let me know that her name was Minnie Smith and that she was a 20-year-old prostitute that was beaten and murdered. One is just letting people know her story. By the profession that she had, it wasn't by choice, it was to help with finances on family. She came from a very poor family, and it was just to help support her family. And if you look into the photo, you will also notice that not only am I communicating with her, I'm looking at our photographer, Joe, and she's actually looking at me. And if you look above my head at the crown and look on her forehead, you will see a red dot there. That is our form of communication. That's how we are able to communicate with each other. This photo means a whole lot to me. It's one of my favorite photos because not very often do you get a photo like that where you're actually able to see them and see the communication between the two. She is a very sweet girl, and she's just wanting her innocence to be known.
And Cindy's an intuitive and empath, as you can well see. If you didn't feel that heartfelt, I don't know what else I can do to explain that to you. All right, what we found, lower levels of the stack to be located on a PowerPoint. Everybody goes down there, goes, there's something going on. Well, ley lines over the whole world. PowerPoints are just where there's a high point of energy. A woman one, medium height, long dress, seemed very busy. Probably a past employee. We never got any more information on her. We got medium height, knee-length dress. Probably, again, another past employee. Then we had Mimi, 20-year-old murder victim, immigrated from Canada and was a boarder in the property in the early 1900s. Man one, a translucent spirit, heavy built, older, captured by both Steve Smith and Cheryl Albert. Energy from several past events included a lot of hanky-panky, and several elementals were found in the stack. Who we think we found? We're looking for a guy that's running around in a doctor's coat, thinning hair, and glasses. I went to Alan, I said, this is who I got. He goes, you got anybody like that? And he goes, what do you think of this guy? So we took the pictures up to the mediums, and the mediums are all going, oh, that's him. Medium height, thin hair, glasses. Jill reported he felt the murals were unfinished or out of balance. That pretty much sealed it for me. That's who I think that was. The Shadow Man is male spirit number 3, very dark and curious, always watching and protective. He was reported to be in inner uniform with a stiff collar. This is the spirit that most people sense in the stacks. We think he's Major Gordon Tanner, a Civil War officer. Major Gordon Tanner, 26th Indiana Infantry, Civil War, was laid to rest in Crown Hill Cemetery. 1829, born in 1829, died in 1861. He was a young guy. There was big things going to happen to this guy. I would like to thank the following: Steve Smith, the Indiana State Library, for inviting us, the ISL employees that graciously shared their encounters with the spirits, Bob White, sociologist from IU, for supervising the employee interviews, Alan Hunter for all of his tireless research, all the team members and guest mediums for their time, skills, and talents. Don't be afraid of no ghost. If you see one, sit him down, ask him lots of questions, okay? Again, most of the spirits here, or all the spirits that we encountered here, were all good spirits. They all had positive things. They were here because they loved either the books, the building, or the people in it. Thank you. This has been our presentation for this search for the spirits of the Indiana State Library.